Welcome to the Retro Station. I'm Dan, Commander and Lone Inhabitant of the old Retro Station, and welcome to our series called License to Play. This is a series about licensed video games, basically retro games that are based on movies, TV, comic books, and in some cases, advertising mascots. So, we're going to move on with this series, but I want to talk about our last episode real quick. Last episode, we talked about a video game I have a lot of personal animus with, The Three Stooges. Now, there have been some emails, and in one case, one singular comment down below regarding that they had a fantastic time with that game and they really loved it. Now, don't get me wrong. The original, I really loved. And they made a good point. Manuals. Manuals are very, very important because after reading the manual, which I got complete in box, so I did. I sat down and was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a chance. So I did. And I kept the footage. And once I got the controls down, all right, I'll admit, Three Stooges may get an appeal in the future. But for now, the revocation stands. That piece of shit. However, we're moving on. Now, manuals were very important. That brought me to this new episode. Manuals back in the day weren't always included when you rented a game, and for a lot of kids, that's how they played their games the first time. And whenever you found a game that didn't require a manual, man, that was choice. That was great. And that wasn't always the case, so not always great. So, this week we're going to talk about that time between the early systems and the 16-bit era. Right in that era where manuals were not only needed, but were key to even playing the game. My gaming history doesn't start in 1989. It actually goes back to 1983 when my dad got an Atari 2600. And while the graphics may seem primitive, for the time, they were mesmerizing. But with a lack of graphic fidelity came a heavy lean on manuals and box art. That was to give you an idea of the game you're going to play. Check this out. This is the comic for the infamous SwordQuest. Swashbuckling, swordplay, running on rooftops, bad ass. And here's the game. Got two words for this garboo. Under-fucking-whelming. Boy, I mean, you had to do a lot of imagination with these games. But sometimes the gameplay was so addictive, the comic was just a great addition to the game itself. Like Yar's Revenge. Raiders of the Lost Ark was a property that people were hungry for. And on the 2600, it's a vaguely familiar adventure. I mean, you've got the marketplace, you've got whipping, you've got snakes, but it's only playable if you have the damn manual. I mean, look at this beast. Without this thing, how would you know that the game is played with the second controller and the shops and shit use the first controller? Atari. So badass, it got a second controller for a select button. What you got? But things changed when the NES came out. The manual for The Legend of Zelda was not only a beautiful example of the artwork transporting you into the boots of a Hylian boy setting out on a grand explorative adventure, but also gave you things like an overworld map and an idea of what each thing in the game was for, and an idea of where to start. The manual for games, especially licensed games, were important in making sure you understood how they were to be played. Check out the manual for the Friday the 13th game by LJN. It's got information in there, but if Atlas had written their manual, there would be a lot more about how to navigate the map and tips that actually relate to the game you're playing beyond watch out for Jason. Take a look at Super Mario Bros., the first manual most NES owners ever saw. It was short and to the point. Most arcade games can be sussed out by simply playing them, and Super Mario Bros. Was the newest iteration of the Jumpman style games. Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3, and Mario Bros. All the games had jumping physics that had been fine-tuned so folks could just pick up Super Mario Bros. And play decently enough without ever playing any of the prior games. So, we're ringing out this crappy year with one of my favorite titles ever on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's got great graphics, beautiful sound, all around just a great game. Puts a lot of other first-run titles and licensed titles to shame, as a matter of fact. It's a classic tale of family, love, and not eating after midnight. That's right. This week, we're talking about Gremlins 2, The New Batch. The 1990 film is a direct sequel to the 1984 comedy horror classic, where Gizmo's owner, Mr. Wing, passes away, and when his store is demolished, Gizmo escapes into the streets of New York, but not for long before he's picked up by one of the creepy twins from Terminator 2. He's taken to Clamp Center, where he is found ultimately by Billy Peltzer, his erstwhile owner from the first movie, and taken in. Unfortunately, as it always has to be, Gizmo gets his ass wet and hilarity ensues. First, by creating a bunch of hoodlum-ass mogwai. These little bastards, unlike the first movie, all have their own little gimmick. Tough guy, doofus, whatever the fuck this thing is, and just plain asshole. It is a big fiasco from jump, and the hood rat mogwai throw Gizmo into an air vent and get to creating chaos that culminates in, wait for it, a giant musical number, which you won't hear on this actual review, because now that I got more than 100 subscribers, the algorithm is far up my ass. So I can't play for you the rendition of New York, New York that Tony Randall does here, but here's what awesome looks like for the deprived millennials out there. So, remember the rules. Don't expose them to bright light, don't get them wet, and never, no matter how much they cry, no matter how much they beg, never feed them after midnight.
After 12 o'clock, it comes out. Now, he didn't eat that after midnight. Yeah, that's right. I didn't make the rules, okay?
Rules? I don't believe this.
Oh, wait a minute. What about this? What if they're eating in an airplane and they cross a time zone? I mean, it's always midnight somewhere.
Gremlins 2 was a very meta take on the whole Gremlins universe thing. Joe Dante directed it kind of at gunpoint. He didn't want to make it Gremlins 2. In fact, he told the studios, if the only way you're going to make a Gremlins 2 is if I'm in it and I'm involved. And he did direct it. They didn't let him write it, though. However, Joe Dante wanted to be sure that since there wasn't a need for a Gremlins 2, he created a Gremlins 2 that would be needed. You know, one that just poked giant holes in the whole Gremlins universe. And while the critics complained that it was a series of gags more than a coherent story, I was a kid and I loved the damn thing. All right, critics can be damned. Even though I guess ostensibly I'm a critic, I'm trying to help you guys figure out what licensed games you can play and what licensed games, aren't so wonderful. But man, I love me some Gremlins 2, and you're about to see why. Let's take a look. Gremlins 2, the new batch. Created in 1990 by SUNSOFT for the NES by Yoshiaki Iwata and the SUNSOFT musical genius Naoki Kodaka. This action-adventure title is focused on Gizmo and his adventure through Clamp Tower, the state-of-the-art super skyscraper home to eccentric billionaire Daniel Clamp, and yeah, he's based on Donald Trump, but he's mostly based on Ted Turner. As a matter of fact, the thing that Clamp's got his fingers into in the film, colorization of old movies, grabbing up old properties to show ad nauseum on his own cable network, was a definite homage and a little bit of a slam to old billionaire Ted. The game is 5 levels, going from Billy's office all the way to the control center, where Gizmo fights gremlins, mutant tomatoes, rats, and various traps and dangers the Clamp organization has installed, I guess because of the clear insane rat fucking problem they had before a single gremlin showed up. Anyway, this game's graphics and music are charming, and what every player on the NES had come to expect from a leader of the industry like Sunsoft. Every single game they put out seemed to be filled with quality, even if they ended up not being major hits. Check out this section from Blaster Master as an example. Now it's well known, but at the time, not a lot of people picked this game up. And now check out the classic Batman movie tie-in. Gizmo begins his adventure in Billy's office at Clamp Center. In the movie, Mr. Wing dies and Gizmo is brought to Clamp Center to be experimented on. In the game, Mr. Wing isn't dead. He just got evicted, I guess, and now has set up a number of shops throughout Clamp Center. In the vents, in the fucking office for some reason between a pair of chairs. Shut up. It's video games. It doesn't have to make sense. Anyway, Gizmo can visit the Mr. Wing shops throughout the levels to spend the little spheres he picks up for continues, extra lives, and stronger weapons. And the weapons in this game are like this. First weapon is the Tomato, an arcing ranged weapon. It's weak, but usable if you have patience. The Match, which throws fire and is strong and able to be powered up into a 3-way shot, but it doesn't go very far. Then, you get the Paperclip, which has longer range, midway in power between the Tomato and the Match. And finally, you put all the elements together for the Paperclip bow and arrow. Strong damage and great range, but the levels are diabolical in platforming difficulty, and this game is short but sweet, so I won't spoil the ending or boss encounters for you. Here's a montage of some of the 5 levels, and a bit of how you'll see. The platforming is just fucking insane. So, with all that said, does our game, Gremlins 2, the new batch, have a license to play? Yeah, of course it does. Graphics, music, everything is top notch. I'm talking about just probably one of the top 20 games on the NES. Now, you can pick this up for about $20. I did. I got mine with manual for $18. So you can find this pretty easily. It's a pretty popular game, so a lot of people had it. Go ahead and pick it up. It's a great game. Try it out. And you won't even need the manual. So if you can find one cheaper than that without the manual, pick it up. It's a fantastic game. Now, everyone, please like, and I want to welcome all my new subscribers. Thanks, guys, so much. But the joke I made about the algorithm, yeah, it's starting to look now. I mean, I'm getting flagged for singing shit myself, just humming shit during a video, and the algorithm's all up in me bum hole. So it's not wonderful for that, but everything else is great. So welcome aboard, everybody. My space pirates, I love you guys, and once we get to 200, everyone gets their badge. And when you get your badge, that means you've been press ganged into the most mighty ship of all the YouTube ships. That's the Retro Station 1989. Lastly, I want to thank the Vimmnet, Vimm.net. I'll put their link information down below. World of Longplays, because I grabbed some of their footage too. Link down below for their channel. But Vimm.net is great. They have a thing called the Manual Project, and they're doing manuals for every system. Atari 2600, NES, Genesis, going out of their way to be great. So, if you like what you saw today, click the old thumbs up. Helps me out. But what more helps me out is the share button, making comments. I'll happily talk with you. Finally, my comments are triggered on my YouTube studio, so I'm actually seeing when you folks talk to me from months ago even. So if you don't feel that I've actually contacted you when you wrote something down, now I'm seeing them. So thanks again for the new subscribers. I'm guessing that's changed the algorithm just a little bit for our channel. And stay tuned this week on Friday. I will be releasing, if I can get the fucking marbles out of my mouth, I will be releasing brand new retro, which is going to be a focus on games that are retro styled, but from the past 2 or 3 years. The first one we're going to do, it's ninja based. And it's probably one you may have played already, but it's not going to be an in-depth review or anything. Like a 5-10 minute video, just celebrating newer games that are keeping it real and staying retro, which you might know is very important to me. Anyway, thanks again, everybody, for coming by and checking out the video. I'm sorry it was late this week. Holiday and a little bit of a sniffle. I wasn't up to finishing this episode. Next week's episode will be on time. So, thanks again. And more than anything I've said during this episode about the game or about anything else, remember to always stay retro. Peace.